Good afternoon, everybody. Blessings on your life. Another day that the Lord has made, and we're going to rejoice and be glad in it. Listen, don't judge me. Please don't judge me. Please give me a second to explain. I know that you're looking at my background. I get it. And the title is okay. Subtitle, that's a bit sketchy, right? But I want to explain it because it's something that we deal with on a day to day basis. We confront it all the time. We probably overuse the subtitle word more than what we should use it, if we use it at all, if we should use it at all. But I want to talk about it today, just a little bit, because we have this period that's approaching us, and it's election. And I know y'all, I sound like a broken record, and you're probably saying, well, why does he keep on talking about these elections? Because not just uh, the primary, the general, special elections. All elections are important because they impact your life in some way, form, or fashion, whether you recognize it or not. And so I'm just trying to get you to double down on something today. And so we're going to talk about Black and Endangered. That's my title for today's message, Black and Endangered. When we look at my backdrop there, we see a brother, nice brother right there, but he is of dark hue. He's a black man, and we also see opposite of him a black rhino. And when we look at this picture, the picture tells us a story. It tells us a story about two entities. One is a person, the other one is an animal. But they can identify with one another very, very well. They both are going through, they are experiencing the same type of struggle. It's just that one has the capacity to talk and to express its emotions in a different way, while the other one does not. It's ironic, and we're not going to talk about this today, that the black rhino is more extinct than the white rhino. It is recorded, and it is said today that there are about 3,000 black rhinos left, juxtaposed to about 13,000 white rhinos. I know that's a mute point, but I'm trying to warm you up here to where we're going and how important this is. However, there's a subtitle to this message as well, and the subtitle is "Niggas on the Run." Now, before y'all beat me up too bad about using that word, I want you to swallow real good, right? Because it's a very familiar word. It is a word that when they came up with the word, it was one of the most satisfying words that the originators could have ever come up with. It's like when you're real hungry and you go to Wendy's or Burger King or McDonald's, whichever is your fair play, and you get you a combo meal. And when you get finished, you got large fries, you got large drinks, shake, whatever it is, Starry, you got you a big double, triple burger, or whatever your protein is. And after you gobble that whole thing down, it just hits the spot. Totally different than if you get you a bowl of lettuce. Getting a bowl of lettuce is like saying, "You turd, why did you do that? I'm so angry with you. You turd. You ain't no good." None of that stuff. It's okay. You can express what you're trying to say, and people get the point, but it does not do nothing to your soul. It don't go down deep enough. It ain't wretched enough when you really feel like you've been got. Somebody is taking advantage of you. It ain't nothing like the word nigga. Nigga seems to fulfill and bring about a satisfaction like no other word. I mean, it runs real close, neck and neck with the F word and with the B word. But those are words. Where they come from, I don't know how they originated. But these are words. When you're secular, when you're in the world, when you're in the street, they become weapons of destruction. They annihilate. They hit the spot. It's a bullseye. Whenever you can pull out the word nigga, and especially if you are white, and you can say that, it just go all through you. People have been stabbed, people have been shot, people have been beat up. It's a whole lot of things that has happened behind the word nigga. Call what they say. What you say? What you call me? You can say 100 other words, but don't use nigga. Don't use B. Those type of words people may not come back from. All right. So I'm saying all that to say this, that the white population, and I'm going somewhere with this because this is something that we need to embrace, and I don't want y'all. This is going to sound a bit maybe political today, and we'll talk about that as relates to the church relationship with politics. But I don't want it to be politicky. I just want it to be informative because there's a lot of truth that is wrapped into what I am going to say and what you need to know, especially Black America. All right. So white folks have learned the art and they've learned the discipline of not using the word nigger. They know that is a word that is off limits. And for the most part, they do very well with that publicly. Now, when they go in private spots behind closed doors amongst themselves, I don't know what is said in those types of environments. But I do know that for the most part, it is harnessed very well when there is a mixed crowd. However, what I want to get to today is how they have continued to use this word to call you a nigga in silence. That's what I want to talk about today. On Sunday, I started this path, if you will, a conversation by delving into when God got silent. And I talked from the subject, the power of silence, and how God, he gave the children of Israel, primarily Judah, its liberty back, its freedom back, and he allowed them to go back into Jerusalem to rebuild the temple, what have you. And that was after some 70 years of captivity. However, what is rarely spoken of in the text is that after that period of time, we get towards the Old Testament, and the last book in the Old Testament is Malachi. And after Malachi, you will notice, and if you don't, it's because you don't read or you don't understand what you read. You will notice a silence. God does not come back and speak again until Jesus comes on the scene. Albeit that John the Baptist is a forerunner. He is warming up the environment for the welcoming of Jesus, which now is the embodiment of God to start speaking to us again. Prior to that, he has said everything that he needed to say. And yet, as we navigated during that 400 years of silence in the absence of God communicating with us back and forth. We had a knowledge of God, we had an understanding of God, but God had shut up. The heavens were shut up. God had shut down communication, and yet there was existence. You were still moving about, doing whatever it is that you do, but you were doing it with the absence now of God's voice. So it is also when you look at that, there is a power in that, because one of the most challenging things that can happen to you is for you to continue to talk to somebody and they don't talk back to you. When you talking and they don't respond to you, that is one of the most frustrating things that you can deal with throughout your day. And when you deal with this for 400 years, it becomes extremely frustrating, but extremely powerful, because in the absence of words, God is still speaking to you. I said on last week, I said that when God is speaking, he is not moving. And when God is moving, he is not speaking. What did I mean by that? When God speaks, he's speaking something because there's purpose in his words. When he speaks something, he wants to make himself clear, himself understood. He's getting ready to do something. So after he says that, those words go and they perform the duty, the actions of whatever God is speaking, whatever he wants to happen. So at that point, while God is moving, whether or not those words are in effect for, within a week, week or a month or a year or 400 years or 5,000 years, whatever it is. He has already spoken. So there's no reason now for God to continue to speak. Now what you see from the words of God is action. God is moving. So when he's moving, he's no longer speaking, because what he's moving with is a word that was already spoken. I'm saying all that to say with my subject, with my title today, and the title is Black and Endangered, but my subtitle is Niggas on the Run. And I said that because I'm saying that what we must embrace. This is something now that many of us, we struggle with, because we think that the power is in the release of the heard word, the word that comes out of a person's mouth when they call you a nigga. And so you deal with that. But I'm here to tell you today that the word nigga that you hear is a very surface word, although it has its strength. And people that call you that, they recognize the strength and the power of that brings. But the other thing, that the benefit of it, folks that want to say it but they can't say it because they know that the word is off limits, what happens is I'm getting frustrated now. I'm getting frustrated, and it's building up in me, and I'm ready to implode. I'm ready to explode. And so what I want to say is, I want to call you a nigga, and not just nigga. I want to call you a black nigga. You black nigga. You black a nigga. When you put all that together, ooh, is so satisfying when you do it. But they have learned, the ones that want to use that phraseology, and they have refrained from using that phraseology. They have discovered that there is another way to call you a nigga in the silence. And I want to talk about that today, because this is where many of us are at as it relates to Black African American people. We don't understand. We are being duped. We are being hoodwinked. We are being tricked. My grandmother used to say it's a whole lot of technology going on around here. But we are being fooled into thinking that the actual word is what is necessary in order to get the reaction. But folks now that are smarter than you in their guerrilla tactics, and their warfare, and their maneuverability, they have discovered that I have something better than the use of the verbal word nigga. Because you still, what you don't realize is that you was on the run. It used to be a day when they would say that to you, and it was okay. It was understood. You go back in the early 1900s, you go back in the 1800s, and nigger was just a common word, and it cut real hard. But they've learned now that we can't do that. But what we felt with that, what we meant with that word, we haven't moved away. And I don't mean that carte blanche. I'm really going somewhere, and I don't want this to sound racist, and I don't want this to sound like I'm trying to kick up dust. I'm trying to educate Black people to a system and a structure that they need to be aware of. I'm calling your attention to do something that you are not taking advantage of, because you have been tricked. So they figured out these other ways, these other tactics, in order to call you that name, and for it to be much more effective than what it was 150 years ago. So in essence, you still being hung on a tree, you still being pulled apart by two ropes, and you got two horses going in opposite direction. There's a whole lot of things that is still going on with you. Your ears still being cut off, your private parts are still being removed. In essence, what they're saying, you ain't nothing but a nigga. But I'm not going to say that. Now, I want to bring your attention to something, because I wrote down a few things, and these are some critical components to my teaching on today. So we must blow graphite on the fingerprints of wolves in sheep clothing. Now, I said that I try to be respectful, because I don't want to say white, because it ain't all just white. Some folks are Black, and they act as if the old slave master. Some of them are brown, and they have the same spirit or disposition. So at the end of the day, it's wolves in sheep clothing. Many times it's regarding our white brothers and sisters, and many times not. When you cannot use the nigger word to vent your frustrations, you invoke new policies. Now hear me, you invoke new policies. So I can't use that word, but I'm gonna find a loophole. So now, since I can't use it because I'm frustrated, and this is what I want to say, this is what I want to do, but I can't do it because I am law abiding, and I don't. It's so much stuff that's going on now. If I would say it, I may end up getting shot, I may get killed, I may get beat up, and it's just going to cost a little bit too much. And so let's not do that. But what we will do is we will invoke new policies and regulations. I want you to hear me very well. Set still, fasten your seatbelt. We will invoke new policies and regulations. This becomes the new nigger word. New policies and regulations, but it's far more effective and has greater reach. For example, when you hear the word law and order, what do you think of? Black folks, now, because I don't know what audience I'm talking to, but if it's white folks have a different perception of law and order than black people do. Why? Because there's a different scrutiny, there's a different experience. When black folks hear the term law and order, and former President Trump, he that emerged to the surface in a much more potent and greater way when he was in office, and when he says law and order, what he meant. For us to understand, now this is just my opinion, okay? This is just my opinion. I feel like for black people, and I say my opinion because I saw the reactions of law and order and the implications as he continued to communicate law and order. It was a thing where you're going to obey, you're going to abide by the rules, by the laws if you are black. However, law and order, on the flip side, it works to the advantage of those that are affluent, those that have money, because law and order becomes something that I can manipulate. I can legislate, I can write, I can have some form of control. So now law and order has a different meaning. Why? Because I become the lawmaker and the order giver. And I'm going to make sure that that is going to work on my behalf. I don't worry about the police pulling me over for jaywalking. I don't worry about the police coming and doing a search and frisk on me because I fit a certain profile. I'm tall, I'm dark, I wear a hoodie. All that. I don't worry about those kind of things. Why? Because law and order has a different meaning and message for me. For me, it gives me power and it gives me strength to stay on top and to control the world systems and structures. But for another party of people, they may be black in you, African American, or perhaps even brown, law and order means for you to get in line. Law and order means that I have a whip. Law and order means that where's the taser? Law and order means that I carry a 9mm or a Glock. Law and order means that I'll get this billy club out and I will beat you to death. Law and order means that I will sick these dogs on you. Law and order may mean that I'm going to gang up on you 12 squad cars deep when I don't even have a weapon on me, and you might get shot down with 30 to 40 bullets, and there will be nothing done behind that. Why? Because on the flip side of that, I control law and order, and I make that work on my behalf. Stay with me because I'm still going with you being called a nigga, but without it coming out of somebody's mouth. I just want you to see today that you still a nigga, but I'm really trying to let me give you the end part of this right here. I'm trying to get you to vote, because the very fact that they make the laws and the order is law and order, it also has to do with a body of voters. And the votes, these things have to be passed through. One of the things that the Trump cards that Trump held for so many years was he didn't expose his taxes, and he played the system. And one of the comments that he made, and he often made it, was that I'm only doing what you gave, what you wrote. Now I'm paraphrasing, but what he was saying was, he says, I'm working within the law, within the framework. He was saying that I'm just doing it and I'm overt. But the way you did it, you was covert. See, and it ain't no different. He says, but y'all want to make me look bad when all I'm doing is what you see is what you get. But what you was doing was you was knocking on the church doors and asking them to come in. And so you could manipulate them and get their votes, never coming back until the next election, which means that I didn't really care. No follow-up. Nobody was really asking you questions to hold your feet to the fire. None of that kind of stuff, right? So you got all this stuff that's going on, but what he did was he said, listen, I am who I am. This was Trump. That's one thing that I can appreciate about him. He said, look, this is just who I am. But I'm not like you. I'm not fake. I'm not going to be fake. But still, I've got issues. I take issue because there's still some things that I'm concerned about Mr. Trump that I feel that would be very detrimental to the African American community. I'm gonna get there here in a few minutes. The other thing is, and I ain't done with Law and Order, but I got to keep going because I'm running out of time. The other thing is voter suppression. How are you being called a nigger? Voter suppression. I don't want to drill down and get into all the details of voter suppression, but you go back and all this stuff where they count. They've even given it over to the state in so many cases, in so many instances. They've given it over, but they're regulating and deregulating certain things to where they're making it to where it will benefit and work to on their behalf. I said before that the black race, because we only represent 14%, we account for 14% of total population. There's no way that we can carry a party, but any party, whether you on the red side or the blue side, cannot win an election without the black vote. So they are aggressively coming after Black America because they know that there is strength with that, and they know that they need that in order to get over the hill. So a voter suppression is another one that they're using when they're calling you a nigger, and they suppress you to the point to where they make the rules. If you have a felony, if you have been to jail, if this or if that, and the system is set up to where a lot of black men, it's recidivism. That's neither here nor there for what I'm talking about. But as soon as you get into the system and they make sure that you find your way into the system in some way, form, or fashion, then they can use that against you, so you don't have a vote. We'll talk about that one day in detail. Reparations is another way where they calling you just a nigga. What do I mean by reparations? Reparations was for everybody but black people. If you look at the Jews got reparations, the Asian people, they got reparations, the Indian people, they got reparations. When I say that, I'm talking about reservations and all that stuff, what they got. But black folks, that America was built on the backs of black people. They were enslaved and done wrong and all that. And I heard one person say one time, they said the only reason why you know more about the genocide of Jews is because there has not been a movie made about the genocide of black people. So therefore, there's no comparison. But they say this is what they say, that there is no comparison. Yes, there is a comparison when you look at it. This really happened to the Jews, but there is no comparison because there's no movie to compare it to as it relates to what happened to the black folks. But when you look at it for what it's really worth, there is no comparison when you look at the weight of it, because black folks is what they're saying. Those scales are tipped so heavily in terms of genocide that it ain't even funny. My point, though, is that there has been some form. There has been an attempt of reparations or restitution, some type of repayment that has been given to other demographics, races, but has not been executed towards black people. And so that's another way of them not having to. And even when I say this, you got Asian folks that are white Asians. You got Hispanic folks that are white Hispanics. And so even with that, you still get this vibe, this aura and you can be implicated into this pool of, this nigger pool. And even though they're not what you would call Caucasian, but they have the embodiment of Caucasian. And so the reaction of feeling the emotional trauma from that can be just as glaring as if it was a Caucasian. They did this with former President Barack Obama, where they called him a nigger. And when they called him a nigger, he didn't believe it. And I'm just talking, right? He may have, but I'm trying to make my point here. So they made Barack understand that he was a nigger when all that stuff was going on with Ferguson, when all that stuff was going on with Tamir Rice, when Barack Obama, former president, when he was in office, there was a lot of mass shootings. There was an onslaught against Black people. And when that stuff was happening, we praised Barack Obama for some of the other things that he did. And we have to get into conversation about that at some other point. But one of the things that I noticed was when it came down to defending Black lives, all lives matter. But when it came down to defending, I'll never forget watching on the news when they would say it was another shooting. There was another shooting, and we're waiting to hear from the president, because at a certain point, the tension was so high, they was waiting for somebody to do something about it. And typically that's left in the president's hand. Former President Barack Obama, mum was the word. And if he did something, it was not felt. Okay. Now I'm just being honest, and I'm being forthright, and just showing you how at the end of the day, although he was the president of these United States of America, with all the legislation, with all the other powers to be that was surrounding him, what it was saying to him without saying it, you ain't nothing but a nigga. Now, how did that happen? Systems, the law, policies, etc. Not that he was going to do anything about it anyway. I don't know what he would have done if he was going to do anything. I just didn't feel nothing from it. The word nigger is used but not heard when there are new policies being rolled out. It is in the school boards, the Senate, the House, Congress, the Supreme Court, and the judicial system, the state, local authorities, police force, gentrification, redlining areas or districts. It's in the banks. It's in universities. All that is all encompassing of you being called a nigger without no one ever using the word. Why? Because all those entities that I just named, in some way, form, or fashion, they make it extremely difficult. You are challenged by those systems and structures to keep you held at a certain place. Now, I know that y'all may not understand that. You may not like it. You may not believe it. I know we should move on. I know that I'm church. I'm just giving you the real. I'm giving you this just off the cuff, just momentarily, because it's real, and it's something that sometimes we feel like that's over and done. But it can't be over and done if oppression still exists, if you still feel it, if there's still no equalization, the disparity gap is not being reduced enough. I gave y'all those numbers a few messages ago about Blacks being outnumbered $100 trillion, whites being outnumbering Blacks $100 trillion more in overall revenue. I gave you that. So that tells me that, there is something that is still left to be desired. Now, let me just get with this church piece just for a second, because I'm already over my time. When you look at the church has always been there, especially the Black church. When we started looking at this, you go back to slavery and oppression. Still slavery and oppression. This is expressed and done in a different way, but that started late 1700s, early 1800s. But when all that happened, because people will say to me, Well, what we ain't dealing with slavery now. All that stuff that was done in the past, and it was done in the past. And I'm not really trying to kick up the dust with it. But what I am concerned about is how do you fare, or if you can fare well in your future. So from a church standpoint, the black church was always involved. Now, some of y'all say, should be a separation of church and state. Well, maybe depends on your context and your culture that it can be a separation of church and state. But for black people, the church has always been the baseline, the base, the nucleus, the springboard, the catalyst of where everything started from. When we look at the black church, the black church was there for support. It was there for politics. It was there for safety. It was there for fairness and equality. It was there for education. It was there for the trades. It was there for engineering. It was there for all that stuff. That all falls up under education. It was there for our history, along with spirituality. The church was the springboard. It was the mecca, the overarching center of how black folks would operate and maneuver with the rest of the world, or especially America, but it really was the rest of the world, because even after emancipation, proclamation of emancipation, even after that, black folks had to deal with liberation psychologically. So even if you was to go somewhere else after you have been oppressed and suppressed for so long, it does something to your behavior. It goes back to trying to build with the residue of Babylon. You can't not erase where you've come from. If you have lived a certain way for the last 40 years, it can't be expected of you to be liberated instantly just because somebody gives a proclamation of emancipation. You still deal with the mental anguish of being locked up. It still chains on you. You take just look at the animal kingdom. You take an elephant, put a little rope on an elephant, and that elephant knows that I only got this radius that I can operate in. He goes, the rope is on him, it's got him. Well, this is as far as you go. Take that rope and that chain off of him, and that elephant still goes in that same space, does not break out of that perimeter. Why? Because it's been programmed. And so this is really, a message to liberate, because it ain't done yet. And so I want you to understand that although you are not being overtly called niggas, but covertly you are still in the nigga category, and it's affecting you far, as the country folks would say, far worse than anybody that could ever call you a nigga outright, because they have now all these other systems and structures that can speak for them. And so they can remain silent in their vocal delivery. But I'm going to beat you with laws. I'm going to beat you with legislation. I'm going to beat you through suppression. I'm going to beat you in so many other ways that at the end of the day, when you look back at your life and look back at your progress, you're still a nigga. Now, let me finish this right here. I want to show you something. Black people. Now, this is, I got this data from, I'm used California for this because I want you to see the value. I want you to put the value in scales. Black people are overrepresented in California's prison population, with a higher incarceration rate than white people. In 2017, 28.5% of California's male prisoners were African American. Hear me, I'm going somewhere, which is 10 times the rate for white men. In Oakland, the incarceration rate for African Americans was 1,856 and 8 people per 100,000 people. So it's almost out of every 2,000 people, out of every 100,000, 2,000 of them would go to be incarcerated if you were of African American descent. Conversely, 92.1 people out of 100,000 people on the white side were incarcerated. So we moved from 2,000 with blacks to 92 with whites, still dealing with out of every 100,000 people. Now watch this. This makes African Americans 24.82 times more likely to be incarcerated than Asians and other races and ethnicities, and 20.16 times more likely than white people. It gets better. According to 2018 U.S. Census Bureau estimates, California's population was 59.5% white, 36.6% non-Hispanic white. I made reference to that earlier because some people identify themselves, even though they're not Caucasians, as being Caucasians, right? 14.7% Asian, 13.8% some other race, 5.8% Black or African American. And then they go on with 8% Native Americans, Alaskans, 0.4%, all that to make up the difference with to get to the 100%. Now, I saw something that was interesting to me, and I'm using this California statistics, and I gave you that data because I wanted to say this to you. In California, the state of California, it has been recently noted and identified that it takes $132,860 annually to incarcerate one person, notably one Black person. $132,860. That's the incarceration amount for 1 year to go through the process. Conversely, for the university, this is undergrad school, for the University of Southern California, it costs $66,640 to go through 1 year. This is the annual tuition for USC. Almost the incarceration rate is almost double that of going to school and being educated at one of their prominent universities. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that to say this. The focus, we will spend more time and energy trying to incarcerate. Now, I gave you this other data so you can see the rate of, I didn't give you the demographics of how many, it's so many other numbers, whereas the disparity is so great amongst whites and blacks in the state of California. But they would rather put their time and energy in incarcerating a Black man instead of educating a Black man, is the reason for my statistic with incarceration and education. Now, to me, that's very problematic. That's just problematic for me all the way around, that you would feel so threatened. Again, it goes back to my title today: Black and endangered, mentally endangered, physically endangered, socially endangered, endangered species. And at the end of the day, my subtitles: niggas still on the run, because you're still running from racism. You're still running from oppression. You're still running because there's a lack of education, because there is ignorance. You're still running. You're still running. You're still chasing, the Joneses. You still want to be like Mike. It's all these different facades that they got out there. What I'm trying to get you to see, I had a video, and I'm not going to run it right now, but I had a video of the BET. They called it, the culture, a look at the culture, or some kind of stuff was dealing with the culture. All it was, it represented Black people, and their representation of the culture was a whole bunch of almost naked girls with their booty moving like jello, and then popping a booty and talking about, what you can do with this and what I'm gonna do to you from a sexual standpoint. All that we have reduced ourselves to that being the culture. What I'm saying, people, is wake up. Now, this is not a message to knock white people down, but it is a message to open the ears and the hearts, the minds of Black people, to say, stop doing this to yourself, and you can do better, to understand the tricks and the trades. because this manipulation and these strategies, this warfare is all around us. And if we don't wake up and start to do inductive and deductive reasoning and look at life in a different way, the endangerment, just like that black rhino, endangered, we will become extinct. After a while, we will become our own self-inflicted genocide. The system will set itself up for us to kill ourselves. I ain't even talking about foods and understanding the all out attack on what you eat is making you, it's driving you to come back and to eat more and more of it. And when you eat more and more of it, they are systematically putting things in the food to kill you. But you have to be made aware. And so there's so many things that I didn't get to in the message today, but I want to do it. I hope y'all didn't get mad at me. I hope, white America is not upset. The ones that would hear it, I'm not trying to bring about attention, but I am, I'm face to face. I deal with facts, and I know I'm church. I'm very spiritual, but at the same time, the reason why I brought church into it, and I said that, this is what the church, the original church, how everything came out of, and it was spiritually based. This is where we shall overcome. All these hymns and these spirituals and all that stuff was a result of oppression. And so it was a result of a cry. If I was to use a scripture, because I know a lot of y'all would say, well, he didn't use no scripture. What scripture base you got? Amos 3:3. How can two walk together lest they agree? Do you understand that the predominant issue that we're having today is that you got people that are in the same room, but they can't walk together because of disagreement? And the scripture says, how can they, lest they agree? And so we've gotten to the place now to where we leave it with, or at, I agree, let's just agree to disagree. And when we say let's just agree to disagree, that is a cop out. That is not godly. That's something God ain't, he ain't on that concept. Let's agree to disagree. No, his way is agree with me, because I have the last word and I am the final authority. But I don't know if we're ready for that yet. So I just wanted to give you a little something, since some of y'all might say, well, where the scripture at? Where the scripture for his rhetoric? But this is an overarching generalization of where we are and where we need to get to. And I'm hoping that we can take this and not get woke, but wake up and do better. Do better. Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge and understanding. And the latter part of that is that God is going to reject you because you rejected his teaching. Not only will he reject you, but he will reject your seed. He will reject the generations that are in you. And we are experiencing a part of that right now, unbeknownst to us. We don't know what's going on. We in a whirlwind and don't even recognize it. We on BET still shaking our butts because some people feel like if they can throw a few dollars up and make it rain and wear a few gold chains, and then the rest of the dum-dums that are of the 14% of Black people, they look to them for their guidance. They look to them as the icons. They look to them as the benchmark for how we should be. Whether you're a football player, baseball player, basketball player, do you know the percentage of all y'all that's out there that's trying to play basketball? How many of you will actually make it to the NBA or NFL? And even if you do, will you get paid, and will it last? It's better to get you an education, get you a trade, get an understanding, than to waste your time on all that. You out here chasing Mercedes-Benz and Louis Vuittons and Gucci's and all that stuff. And we don't own nothing. And so this is the problem. And so they continue to get richer and we continue to get more and more poor. And we need to stop this. It's insanity. When you look back and you measure your life, and you can talk about all the people, you can be super critical. But when you look at them, you say to yourself, but my response to them, how is it working for me? I may critique them and tell and say what they should be doing versus what they ain't doing and how they can do it better and all that. But when you look at their lives, whether you approve of it or not, how is it in comparison to yours? What are you doing? How is God in your life showing up? How is your personal counsel to yourself? How is that benefiting you? So just do that. I mean, that's the taste test right there. Okay. I want y'all to know that the Lord loves you so much. I want you to go with God, go in his might, go in his will, go in his mercy. But most of all, I want you to go in his grace. Go in his grace. God loved you. God loved you so much that he gave his only begotten son. I love you too, but I can never love you like God. I can never replace that. I'm only here as a voice. I'm just crying out. And all of this fits jointly together. We can't over spiritualize and we can't under practicalize, if that's a word. We got to have balance. So this is what this platform is all about. I love y'all. I want you to go in God's grace. I want you to share, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, and all the things that you do for technology's sake, but it's for ministry's sake. I really want the word to get out there, and I need you in order for that to happen. I want you to be blessed. I am Dr. Donnie Eatman, and I am the face of Face to Face Ministry. Until we meet again, shalom.